connected up. Aha, right. Sam, how's it going, my man?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
You know what? We're trying to do what we can to stay optimistic and busy in these uncertain times. You know what I'm saying? Everything good with you on your end?
Everything's good. Everything's good. You know, we're getting ready for another screening tonight. We've been showing the movie. You know, the movie's been showing it at so many. I mean, it did its full run, and then there was a series of screenings prior to, and now there's a series of screenings after the full run. So we're just, you know, from big city cinema to small town theaters, as I said, it's kind of cool. So
totally. Okay. Now, was the first screening at New York? Was that the world premiere of the movie?
World premiere was in New York City. Yeah, it was at the Regal in Union Square, and it was just a part of the Chelsea Film Festival, and it was just we were the opening night film, and that was kind of like a huge thing for us.
Oh man,
festivals. You know, and then to be at the Regal in Union Square where you've watched other movies, you know, and that was an unreal situation for us. And then, you know, of course, you walk out. The moment you walk out the theater, you see the Empire State Building to your right, and kind of you're just kind of like in New York City at my. It was yeah. I mean, it's
overwhelming experience, I'm sure.
New York was wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Okay.
I love to go to all my brothers and sisters in New York City.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, from one big city to another, you know, Detroit and, you know, that whole area as well, you know, it's not like an unfamiliar, you know, overwhelming, you know, looking around at all the steel and buildings, you know, I mean, so that's nice too, to have kind of a comfort in and of itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, here on the show here, you know, one of the bigger things we're going to be digging into is, of course, an intrusion, just different things as far as, you know, your work toward the movie. But then, you know, before that, I wanted to dig into, you know, some earlier memories and different interests as far as film and, you know, just personal interests. And from early on, first of all, tell us about maybe a TV show or a movie that resonated with you, possibly, you know, starting in your interests.
TV show, probably like, I mean, in terms of, this might sound cheap. I don't know. The moment you said that, you said earliest and you said TV show, I'd be like the Dallas, you know?
Okay.
The opening credit sequence, especially. Da, na, 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 na. You know, it's funny because I would sit down or just watch. I don't know why that soap opera became like a thing. It was like the epic soap opera, probably. Nobody knows what.
Yeah.
But actually being, when I was a kid, at the, you know, my dad was down in Texas, so being at the actual Dallas farm, we saw, oh, that's the real location. That was probably when I realized what TV and film was. It was something that was people could make. And I mean, the very first movie I watched in theaters probably meant a lot to me. I'm sure for a lot. You know, we couldn't. You know, I grew up, you know, product of a single mother household. Shout out to my mom. Love you, Ma. And we couldn't afford to necessarily go to a lot of movies. Like, it was kind of like a real special thing to do it. And so we went to there was a second run cinema. I don't know, people were like, what's a second run cinema? Those aren't even around. But it was,
no,
you know,
that is.
When you know, for all the younger ones out there, don't, because it's funny, I thought we were young. Now we're like, there's a whole new generation that doesn't know that.
Right.
He has done playing, you know, its full regular run, then it goes to like the second theater, and the tickets are about half off. Sometimes they were 99 cents, sometimes they were $1, $2. Masters of the Universe, Gary Goddard's Masters of the Universe.
Oh man,
that was the first film I ever saw in theaters that I could remember. Such a big deal. That and when I went to that same theater to see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Back to the Future and all the other, you know, so we a lot of time at the second run theater. So
okay, yeah, I mean.
So TV, Saturday morning cartoons, you know, watching X-Men, you know, that was like, I was that nerd that, you know, the 1990s of, you know, sitting down Saturday morning and having to wait for it, you know.
Yeah, right. And not just being, you know, something to click on, and, you know, you maybe had to go through a show that you didn't like first, or you know, you had to make sure to catch it at the right time, for sure.
That's the way it is, guys. So,
well, so touching on that too, as far as I wanted to, you know, dig into maybe even childhood heroes, you know, whether it was something maybe, you know, like, starting out some of your bigger aspirations for now, you know, just kind of digging in and going for it, whether it be maybe superheroes from shows or family or friends, somebody that, you know, just pulled you aside at a young age and said, look, you're not going to do shit just sitting down on your butt.
Definitely everyone in my family, you know. I was just talking about my mother, but I remember when she saved up all her cash to take us to she took me to Wizard World. It was like a huge thing. was like a huge thing. It wasn't something casually we decided. Like, I remember she had to save. She literally busted her butt and saved up all this money to take me when I was a kid. I mean, it was one of those situations where everybody in my family was rich in love. You know, it's funny because now I obviously can afford to do certain things, and it's funny, like all the things that are on my eBay watch list and all that. Everyone's always like, "Why are you buying all this stuff?" And it's like to make up for all this stuff I couldn't have. I'm buying action figures and X-Men comic books and Power Rangers 12. I was like, I want the Green Ranger. I remember I couldn't afford the Green Ranger because you could only get whatever, and I want that now. Or Nike Air Force. I remember everyone in school had the Nike, the ones with air on the side. So now I'm like buying those in like every colorway, and as a grown, like I'm like a grown up now, but it's just because it's like, oh, now I have some money, so I can go back and buy all the things.
Yeah.
But we went to Wizard World, and for 5 seconds, like I don't know, maybe 10 seconds, I'm walking Wizard World, and I bump into Stan Lee as a kid, and we took a picture, and there was no iPhones, and I had one of those the wind up Kodak disposables, and I remember getting that. Taking that to get developed, and that was super exciting. But just a few seconds that I got to meet with him, and I was like, hey, I tried to explain like what it took for me as this like little kid to get there, and he was super nice. He was just
oh man,
and it was amazing how nice he was. I was like, today, because of the situation, some of us are in now that we work in the business of being able to meet people from music, TV, sports, whatever. Because the different realms are now intertwined. You go to events and you can meet people, and some people don't kind of step up to the expectation where you're like, oh man, I used to love that guy's music, but wow, was he kind of
yeah, right,
off day. But hey, we're at the same event together and the same after party together, drinking at the same private. That's how we but
yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I know I see what you're saying.
But when I met, probably the way I was when you came to the premiere, and I kind of was completely frozen.
No. I mean, that was, it was
such zoned. Dude, I felt so zoned out at a movie premiere. You're like, meet this person.
Right.
Oh, and here's the mayor of this person, and oh, by the way, the police chief from such and such showed up, and oh, by the way, this actor's agent is here, and oh, the publicist, okay, and you're running and darting and going, and I really just need to go to the gentleman's room because
I'm just trying to get a beer.
But yeah, Stan Lee, back to the question, yeah, Stan, that dude was, wow, what a gentleman. I mean, he was so kind and so generous, and that guy walked around smiling all the time because even when we were done. I walked around and I saw him again, and he was still smiling and talking to random people. It didn't matter who it was, and it was just like what a splendid guy. And anyway, we ended up at an after party with him because another very popular journalist at the time, sort of I don't know I don't know if he took pity on us, but we many years later. This is not at that event, Wizard. This is not. I was a kid. I was a grown up now. Many years later, San Diego Comic-Con, and now that you kind of know some people, you're in the business. People are like, "Hey, let this guy in." We got into Gene Simmons' after party, and Stan Lee's there again. And I went up to talk to him again. I said, "Stan, I don't know if here's the deal. You probably don't remember, but I want to tell you something. Like, couple, it seems like almost a decade and a half ago when I was a kid, you met me." And he was like, wow, oh, man, it's so good to see you again, Sam. He just acted like he had remembered, maybe, I don't even think
it's like an old friend, yeah.
But, hey, I mean, I was like, that guy was consistently that nice gentleman. So I don't even know, it's funny because I know a few people that have met Hugh Jackman and have told me the same thing. So, where you have someone who's just such, like there's a regal sort of gentleman thing about them that's just how they are, and they're so splendid. And so anyways, yeah, that was a big deal for me. That was probably
I love that, and so inspirational. I mean, for sure. And as far as like with the premiere and whatnot, there were so many people, and it was a lot going on too, to where it wasn't anything as far as hard feelings, just kind of a, hey, how's it going? Good to meet you, and you guys, I thank you for coming. It wasn't anything, by any means, because I talked to Nick for a second too, and it wasn't anything where it was like I'm trying to be hanging out and all that. It was a lot going on, and I completely understand. So I appreciated the reach out, and you guys invited me. It was awesome. It was great.
I'm glad that you came. Yeah, hopefully you liked the movie. I hope you enjoyed it. So
I love. Luckily, I liked. I touched on this, with somebody else, and I kind of felt I didn't want it to, to seem rude, but I was like, man, before I even watched it, I had gotten a hold of all you guys to do these interviews, and I kind of like started thinking about that night, and I'm like, man, what if the movie is not good? Which, thankfully, thank God, just with the people that were involved, I had a good feeling about it. But it was awesome, and I've watched it a few times since, with family and different things, and everybody enjoys it. My boy, he's 13, and was like, man, that was like a lot of fun and a real, kind of range and rush.
And Craig had joined. Look at all these people that are joining. Hey.
We got him, yeah. That's the basis of Sick of It All. Do you remember? You know that band out of New York legend, right there.
Yeah.
So we got here as far as with the premiere, touching on theaters and different things, and you had mentioned with going to the movie theater at a young age. How about something as far as what comes to mind with seeing a poster, a movie poster, or maybe even a movie cover, and something that drew you in?
It's awesome to see all you guys too. What's up, Mike? Look at all these people. Look at all these people joining this thing. Hey, Jillian and Mike. Look at all people I haven't even seen in a while. But a movie poster like that. Key art is really. I used to love collecting movie posters. That like there was, again, we couldn't afford to go to like the Blockbuster, so we went to like the other video stores, the
sure.
knockoff. And there was always the, I wasn't lucky enough to get a lot of the 27 by 40 like official double-sided posters, but I would become friends with some of the guys. And because for a lot of folks out there that don't remember, there was the movie poster, then there was the video store poster, which had like the video store date on it. So I got a ton of those still rolled up. And
wow, sweet.
If you want to come over and just take a few,
yeah,
be worth a ton. Now it's more like nostalgia, but again, I have to go back to Masters of the Universe. I don't know that for some reason that art. It's funny because I just loved everything about that when I still see it, and you still see Dolph with the perfectly drawn sort of, and those are actually his. And you see
right
with the little device coming through the wormhole, all that. Key art is such an amazing thing. Posters are such an amazing thing. But, there's always the things that people remember, like the Jaws, of course, and shark coming up toward the legs. But my era, 1999, you probably remember this, that very first Star Wars teaser poster, the first one, the young Anakin with the shadow of the Darth Vader. It's funny because I know some people were like, well, the movie, certain parts of it, but they were like, well, I love that poster. Did you see the poster, Dad?
Yeah, right.
I still liked it, but and I still like for everybody out there, whatever. I know I'm going to now get a lot of hate. People like, I can't believe you liked it. I love Ahmed Best. You're fantastic. Because that wrote some. And if you ever want, what if you do? Fellowship of the Ring. That first poster where Elijah's holding the ring. And which is funny because that Elijah holding the ring poster reminds me of the 8 Mile poster, when Eminem was writing on.
I've never thought of that, but I can see that.
Yeah. I always see key art and I see like the functionality, but simple key art is always best. I always tell people especially like indie filmmakers, if you have any control over, try to simplify it because the more complex things become, then it's like, But the art of the teaser poster and the art of the one sheet, I get on going.
Yeah, totally. Well, with An Intrusion, was that the initial poster art that had come out as far as with the different cast and having the mask on at the top there, or was there initially something else?
Nick, I'm the producer of the film and one of the actors in the film. So a lot of people confuse us. Nick Holland, who was a brilliant, awesome friend who wrote and directed it. He had actually came up with a couple of different posters himself, borrowing that same design, with the intruder holding something in his hand, and it was the house upside. We were like the house and a knife toward that, and I loved it again because it reminded me. I was like, that kind of reminds me of, But when obviously you want to do it's a collaborative effort once a film gets picked up by a studio or by big distributor. We were sitting here. We were so elated that the folks at Gravitas, so thank you to Gravitas Ventures and everybody there when they picked up An Intrusion. And I mean, we had a few offers to go through, and you know, we came full circle back on that one, and the team there really, I think, did a good job. You know, we kind of came on something together on something that we kind of all sort of agreed with, and the color designs and the palette of how they use the reds and the, you know, so we gave them a concept, they gave us a concept, you know, and it sort of, then it became, you know, luckily I haven't had a lot of bad key art experiences on any of my films, or, you know, most of the marketing teams that I've worked with have been really good with it, for the most part, in my opinion. So I like the poster. I personally, you know, I love Dustin kind of on the, you know, Scout Taylor Compton on the side with her. She looks like totally bad A, yeah.
Right.
And you know, the house on fire, and this is sort of, the house on fire reflects sort of a symbolic thing, and, you know, you know, it's you know, it's all about, you know, composition, and, you know, all that stuff's really important. You know, it's amazing because you know, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll talk. I love this conversation with you because I have a lot of those, you know, I was a theater guy, so, you know, you'll sit down and have all these conversations about script and character and story, and, you know, but I also, you know, I also have a master's degree in management in addition to my conservatory education. So it's always fun to talk about the film business part of it. The actual business part is, it's almost like its own art, the economy of what the business thing is, and how key art reflects, and the psychology of marketing, you know, and the emotion of how you feel and how the filmmaker, you know, but, you know, those things are all just as important. Like that It poster behind you, you know, it's, you know, there's something about that, right?
Yeah.
And it's compositionally perfect, you know, and it's got the reds and how that plays. And
yeah. You know, it's when you're younger, all you see is the visuals and the initial draw and the interest of, ooh, that looks scary, or that looks something. And then it's mentioned, you know, in mentioning, you know, as far as the actual, you know, thought process that kind of goes into certain things, or the marketing that goes into certain things, you know, as you get a little bit older and look further into the business aspect of it, you know, there's a lot of things where it's like, even something simple like that, the Jaws poster, you know, something simple, but it just draws you into what the hell is going on there. You know, I mean, I love that. And I love that aspect of it. I'm not involved in film, you know, by any means, but I do love that about movies for sure.
yeah.
So in your interest, lastly here, I just wanted to ask you about 3 scenes. So whether in horror or outside of horror, 3 scenes in film that are forever ingrained in your brain. So whether it's something that was shocking, maybe scary, terrifying, what comes to mind? 3 scenes.
You know, it's tough. You know, end sequences for movies that are always, you know, Shyamalan kind of like perfected the twist, you know, in the last decade, and sort of that kind of became shocking. You know, I mean, you ever watch those, like those, you know, the horror movies, like the most, remember that iceberg design of like the most horrible horror movies or whatever, where like the end, I don't know if that's even like, and there's some people out there that may or may not know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to elaborate because I'm afraid of is this like a PG rated audience, or, you know?
No, I mean, you can.
There's this horror sort of diagram of what, like, the most horrific horror movies, and that you got, like, of course, your Blair Witch, and then you've got things where really horrible things happen. You almost don't, you can't ever get out of your head again.
Yeah.
Watch some of those movies because I want to see what these films are, and those definitely stay with you. But like in pop culture, gosh, I mean, I grew up watching a lot of, like, and I don't want to sound trite when I say this, but a lot of the films from the 60s and 70s, especially a lot of foreign stuff, and Krzysztof Kieślowski and Abbas Kiarostami, and you know, French movies, Polish movies, Iranian movies, German movies, Italian films. I'm always, even now, there's some of the modern stuff. That's one of the reasons I missed the video store, because I would always go to the foreign section, whether it was romance, or love to just grab things and look, and I was just digesting all this stuff, because whatever we're doing here, there's someone right now in the UK and Scotland and Finland, wherever, I don't know, in Spain, who's just doing a wonderful job doing the exact same thing. But I'm having a tough time with this one, because it's, you know, there's so many ends, because an end scene is so, you know, it's so important, isn't it? How it leaves you with something, and that's kind of what we kind of thought of with An Intrusion. How do we want to leave people at the end of the movie? And Nick just did a wonderful job with that. For anyone there, already, if you miss it in theaters, it's on Amazon, iTunes, Fandango's Vudu. It's all that, and DVD and Blu-ray come out on January 25th. But if you want to stream it, it's on Amazon now. really proud of this one. You know, Nick and I came together. Both of us had done previous movies where the outcome wasn't really, we weren't in charge of it. I don't know if that makes sense. You know,
Okay.
We were talking about whether a movie is good or bad, and you were saying, I hope it's good. I just, you know, I had to comment on that just because I've been on a film where, you know, it says directed by Sam Logan Khaleghi, right? But you're, due to a lot of cooks in the kitchen or multiple factors, you're kind of like, 80% of it is me, but then there's this 20% that got in there that has nothing to do
Editing or post or...
Yeah, because certain people, just all these kind of like, there's 15 people arguing about your movie, and you're standing outside of the circle of these 15 people. Now these 15 people are deciding what, and you're kind of like, what is a good idea or bad idea, and there's certain things that will happen that are outside of your control. So when Nick and I did An Intrusion, it was very important for us to, I don't want to say it's about control, but about allowing what was to really become. So, you know, when you wrote the script, I said, as the producer, when I said, listen, I want you to make the movie you want to make, because we both made movies where we were proud of listen, I'm proud of all this stuff, but you know, they were fun adventures and there was great memories, but we know we get to a certain point where certain people kind of get involved and you're like, and they start changing things. So, oh, what if we took your opening scene and put it now, it's now the second scene, or the closing scene is the third scene, and this scene is, and then they shuffle your movie around. You're like, well, now nothing makes sense. And when people write the reviews, they're like, I like most of this film, except, and it's funny because all the things people of certain films will kind of go, you know, the reviewers, you know, and I'll say, see, I told you people, that's what, if you did that, that's what would happen. It would confuse folks. So on this movie, it was very important for me and to really allow Nick, and thanks to like everyone at the distribution company and all our international distributors that were coming out in the UK, we're coming out in Benelux, South Korea, and South America. Every one of our distributors connected with the film and said, you know, we're not going to change the film. We're not going to change the cut. The film will exist in the way it's cut. Because while it is an art film in a way, it's also an amalgam of a commercial horror film with the elements of a thriller kind of married into one another. And I really just hope everyone enjoys it. So I know that doesn't quite answer I'm trying to figure out, you know, but I think that's kind of when you asked about end scenes, I think it's sort of left something with me, because how important it was for us to, you know, we were both kind of in a situation where we really wanted to leave the movie with people being able to think a little bit about
what's next.
Yeah, I don't know where this character's journey is going to go, and I'm so involved because that's real life. It could, you know, like I loved when I watched Castaway, you know, and Tom Hanks is at the fork in the road, literally, and he's kind of like this oh, he's going to go back, you know, or, you know, I just saw Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh my goodness, by the way.
Oh, man.
And I don't want to spoil it, but even at the end of that movie, you're sitting there going, this could end, or in your head, it could also go, I'm already imagining all the directions. And that's when a movie is so amazing, when, you know, it's not so, for me, it's not so definite. It's, you know, the audience, you allow the audience to at least, until you make something else, or maybe you want to follow it up within continuity, or, you know, and do something else. But no,
yeah, totally.
There won't be an Intrusion sequel, unfortunately. So we won't see. But thanks to, honestly, Billy Boyd, Keira Gilchrist, Scout Taylor Compton, Dustin Prince, who's such another gentleman, also a very regal actor. He's amazing. But all the talent and all their managers and agents, everybody that came together, and all the people behind the scenes, and Cy, who's our cinematographer, and our lighting designer, Pete, and I mean, everybody, you know, who came, our below the line and above the line guys, everybody was so amazing. Mike Emery, oh my God, flew out from New York with Jaime Zavalos. The both of them flew out to New York just to do, you know, and Mike, it's funny because Mike has that role where you can't quite talk about it.
Right.
You know, Mike is like one of the Marvel secrets, right? You're like,
yeah.
You can't, you know, so you just have to watch it, and you're like, you know, like, he's someone that should have been on the poster, but it would have spoiled the movie. But
right.
He would have, no, everyone was so, we just had such an amazing team. Everyone was so amazing. So
oh, go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
No. Sorry. I wanted to say, because it was one of those films where, like, we were just shocked at who said yes. You know how, I mean, I grew up, listen, Fellowship of the Ring was funny. Lord of the Rings was at 20-year anniversary the other day, you know, and I texted Billy, you know, and I'm like, congratulations, you know, and he sort of, you know, I'm sitting there, and he texts me back, and I'm like, I just made a film, and I even had a scene with an actor that I've looked up to, you know. So,
Sure.
you know, for us, when other actors kind of go, oh my God, it's so amazing, you know, how do I do this? We're still thrilled and elated every second when we kind of dissolve into that for a second. Go, this actor said they, you know, we sent a script out and they said yes, or this, or you know, when Kier said yes, or Scout said yes, you know, or when friends of mine like Mike Emery and Jaime Zavalos from also another Marvel show, Cloak and Dagger, Jaime's, you know, when they say yes to, hey, you know what, we're gonna hop on a plane and come out from New York and come do this movie. We were just so lucky that the whole team, everyone was, you know, and then just some amazing talent in between that, you know, with Angelina and Erica and all those. I mean, everyone did just such a splendid job. So
yeah, absolutely.
And it was cool how we connected, because you had interviewed Kier, because I, you know, It Follows and the whole
that's how this whole thing started.
You know, degrees of separation. So, hey, you want a cameo in my next movie? Is that, can we set that up?
I don't know if I can act, but I could certainly try if that's a thing.
Where you like play yourself, like kind of meta in our the next thing I do, where we kind of just pop you in.
Well, you know, we'll talk on the side and we'll see what comes of that.
I see this guy. I was like, hey, you know, like, wouldn't it be cool if he did this, or we had this kind of thing? Yeah. So
yeah. Well, so as far as your interest in film, where did it all start? As far as from loving movies, loving TV shows, different things, to, you know, the idea of coming into, well, maybe I can do something, you know, involving myself in film. How did that start?
You know, I mean, just, you know, in high school, probably, actually even before high school, I was kind of the class clown. I was kind of the dorky kid, and then, you know, I wasn't very athletically inclined or anything. I mean, I did track and field and all that, but I mean, most of my time was spent, you know, I was filming on old VHS, like the kind that people would actually put the VHS in it, and kind of, you know, you'd have to edit within the camera, you know.
Yeah, I remember all that.
Or mini DV and VHS-C commercials that we used to make, and we would just like spoof commercials. We would do these like little SNL skits, and you know, and I remember, you know, my high school counselors and all that going, "Are you sure? You know, this is kind of what you want to do?" And you know, and it's funny, you know, because now I look back on it, and I think of all the people that I actually went to my high school. I was kind of you know, Justin Bartha from, you know, National Treasure, and you probably know, you know, who's in.
Oh yeah, okay.
And all that, you know, and Brandon T. Jackson was in my first film, who did Tropic. Of course, yeah, a lot of people went to. I was like, man, Westbrook had a ton of. I was like, look at it, you know. I know there's a lot there. There's a lot of folks that I was like, I went to a school that sort of spawned a lot of
something in the water.
Art. Well, we're surrounded by lakes, so I don't know. It's
touche. Lots of it.
You know, and there's everyone in our region. So it's there's a lot of folks that I'm just like, I'll watch an NBC show or ABC show, and then the star of the show is someone that's like, oh, that person went to middle school with you, and that person. And I was like, what is up with Metro Detroit? Everyone is. Like, hey, Erica, there she is. There's one of our stars. So she nominated, got a couple of film festival nominations for Best Actress. She was one.
Erica and well deserved. Yeah, for sure, well deserved. Absolutely.
With a few people, and then some people were like, oh, who's the mom? Who's Erica? Who's the matriarch of this film? She's so, you know, like the weight of that. I mean, everybody just delivered on this movie, man. These actors, my fellow thespians were something of a. I can't wait to work with some of these guys again. So,
totally.
But I don't want to. Yeah.
No.
I keep going, so you die. Whatever.
No, it's not a problem. I was just going to mention on, you know, so kind of fast forwarding a little bit, and you know, your work in film, you know, in filming all over the state, you know, in Michigan here, myself being from Michigan as well, I was really interested in hearing about through some of your different features, you know, your Devil's Night, Approaching Midnight, An Intrusion, and others, you know, having different spots that you shot through Michigan. One in particular, you were mentioning that you recreated Afghanistan outside of Ann Arbor, was it?
Approaching Midnight with Jana Kramer, and Brandon was in that, Mia Serafino. That's, by the way, everyone, if you guys want to watch Approaching Midnight, it was like literally my first feature. And it's my first film. Okay. As like their first, it's funny because I'll look up filmmakers that I looked up to, like, guys like Sam Raimi, who were also from Detroit. You look at their first stuff, like,
Yeah.
But we got picked up. I mean, the movie exchanged hands a few times, so I know some people Googled it, and there's like Hollywood Reporter, and we were even shocked that we were in the Hollywood Reporter and all that variety, But it got picked up and exchanged hands. 1 minute it was going to be released by Lionsgate, then it went to Monterey. Now it's at Bayview. And it's still out there on Tubi and all that now, because now it's in that whole, the Tubi world and the Amazon world. So check out Approach. Yeah, I play a soldier in the film, and as a producer on that one, again, it was about what kind of assets can I bring together on a certain budget. And I reached out to this one guy who had this rock quarry. Some stuff we did on the west side of the state. So if you see them, that's actually the sand dunes on the western side of the state, for all the people who don't know.
Oh, really? No. So I'm from the west side. So yeah. I was interested in that part too, as far as you would mention filming on the west side too. Okay, so that's out on the dunes. Okay.
We did the dunes, and then here south of Ann Arbor and Milan, there was a guy who had given us. We just reached out, and he literally gave us like the code to the gate. Basically the key to the gate, and to his rock quarry. He said, "Go do whatever you want to do. Have fun. Just clean up when you're done." And that's the kind. Yeah, we recreated the whole world. We had all these real soldiers come out, and a lot of my friends were actually in the army. To me, everything is about, like, legitimacy is very important to kind of get the uniforms right and all. Because I always drives me nuts when I watch a movie and I'm like, that's not what the Marines wear. That's not that.
Yeah.
Probably wearing tiger stripes. I'm like, that's the Air Force. Well, now everybody wears the multicam, so they're all literally uniformed.
Uniform, right.
The patches and knowing what's what, and getting all that right. But yeah, that was a fun one, man. It was for even though, again, that was another example of, like, the outcome of the film wasn't necessarily in my hands, even though I was the director. The greater surrounding things that happen around you. But which is what has affected me. I go watch a movie now when I see directed by or produced by, I always remember now, I'm like, well, it is, but there's always, like, to the audiences out there who might wonder, like, how did this become this? Well, it's not always the director's fault. Sometimes an actor will show up 4 hours late and you'll lose this. Something was scripted, didn't end up getting done because or this happened, or the exact somebody involved in financing the film wants their nephew to do something instead of like a professional actor. So you're like, they kind of will force it on you, or
Oh no.
The things we really should use a real actor to do this. It's comical. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. I enjoy. I love the fact that we did those, but some of those, like, but it's not really. They were fun. But yeah, I mean, as from a producing level, yeah, we did. We recreated that whole thing and had these military trucks come out, and there's a lot of phone calls. That's what producing is. It's just calling, and convincing everyone to come together at the exact same time to execute one sequence, and then you have to do it again for the next day and the next day and the next day, and then you do it for 14, 15, 20, 30 days, 60 days on the case of a big blockbuster, and then that's how you have a movie. That's how a movie gets made. I mean, it's I once went through I saw how a car got built, and when you see all the elements that go into making a truck or a car and all the different parts and from all the different parts of the world where they all come together and all the different folks and all the different and the movie's the same way, and you've got different folks and different organizations as well, and then you got the writer, you get this and everybody. Sometimes it's amazing that anything actually gets done. So I remember when I was talking about comic books earlier, I remember opening up Wizard and reading, like, when is this superhero movie going to happen? And remember that when you were just, like, hoping.
Totally.
Now, things happen a lot easier because it's been proven. But it's so many things had to come together and didn't, because if it's Jenga, if one piece, and let's say you do remove one piece, and let's say this person, halfway through you got to change the DP, or this person halfway through you got to do this, and the movie still comes out. It might not have been what was originally planned, or So making movies is just, it's such a, sometimes it's like, it's such a crapshoot, right? Like, but that's why I'm so proud again of An Intrusion, just because of the cast and the crew and everybody showed up with their A game, and everyone, it was one of those films where everyone wanted to be there. You know, I was literally everyone. I mean, the only argument I think we ever had on set, we didn't have any. I think one day I ordered, one day we got pizza, but it was like gourmet pizza. It wasn't like, you know, it was a gourmet, but I got like, it was, you know, I got fish, I got anchovies on this pizza, and I remember I was like, "What's up with the anchovies?" I was like, I thought it was, you know.
Everyone's like, "Who the hell ordered this on a pizza?"
One day, that was the day that I think there was a fight. It was Sam. Like, dude, I got pepperoni and vegetarian too. Calm down.
Right. Right. Oh, that's funny.
But that's
okay. So,
like, it was like summer stock. I mean, it literally, some days it felt like a giant film. Like, for you, have you seen the film? The very last scene was this huge event and multiple things to coordinate. And then some things were, you know, not. But I mean, you know, this movie meant a lot to me. You know, it was my first PGA. You know, as a, you know, I mean, because, you know, now, I'm a SAG actor, but I'm also, you know, now it's like I'm a bona fide producer too. You know, to join the ranks of so many actors out there who kind of do both. That, you know, it's kind of like I grow up. You know, I'm watching TV with the guys like George Clooney and Tom Hanks who are doing all that. You know, where they're producing. But that's the thing. I wanted to take control of my own world and destiny of at what point can I do my best to at least manage which direction our work goes. And so I'm trying to be a little bit more involved.
Totally. Okay. With An Intrusion, tell us about, you know, bring us back to like that first day being on set and what you remember, you know, initially, the first scene that you saw, you know, as the start of the production.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember what I think that my first shot may have been Nick might have to correct me. It was an establishing. I think it was like a B-roll. I don't even think it was a scene. I think I was trying to get something in the can, I think, before the day started. But I was excited because, you know, I had to pick up, you know, Scout had arrived. I believe Scout had arrived before Keir, and then I got Keir. And they were staying at different, well, no, actually, no, they were staying at the same hotel. Billy was at a different hotel, but just that whole, I think that whole thing of, you know, when, like, I know some theater people talk about it when they show up, when guys that do the stage, when they show up and it's like drinking coffee and that the smell of, you know, wood and paint, and as everything's getting set up on a stage, and there's something in the air, and you know, the hours beforehand when the musicians in the pit are, you know, just getting their instruments ready, and you hear the strings and the brass, and everything's kind of like getting torqued and kind of tweaked, and you kind of, you know, everyone's kind of prepping for it, and all those sounds. And that's kind of what it reminded me of on day one of filming, where all the different things were moving around, the truck showing up, the gears unloading, this, you know, and then you're going to pick up an actor from the hotel that you grew up watching, and something, you know, and that, you know, to be able to work with someone who I get to associate, like I said, with Peter Jackson, and get to someone I get to, you know, who I get to associate with Rob Zombie, and get someone else who, you know, with Keir. I mean, I loved Atypical. 4 seasons. Who does 4 seasons on Netflix? You know, that's like so unheard of. Like, even Jupiter Ascending got canceled, right? And I really want to know how that ends. But, like, Keir got 4 seasons, and he's the title star of the show. So the fact that, you know, I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm picking this guy up from a hotel, you know, we're just kicking it, you know, and he was talking about, you know, Detroit and how it was cool to come back. How it was cool to come back to Detroit and seeing certain spots and talking about certain places. And that to me was like that moment of, you know, the strings, you know, when in the pit, in the theater, where everyone's, you know, prepping and getting ready, and you're showing up, you're arriving, and the lens is starting to get on the cameras, and everybody's kind of like, you know, you're looking at all the different department heads, and kind of, and you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of interesting, because in one sense we're this small indie movie, but in another sense it's also one of the bigger things we've done. So, you know, and you've got that nervousness of, I really hope this works. I really hope we make our day. I really hope we make tomorrow's day. And then, you know, Alex, our first AD, he's putting the call sheets together, and you know, and you're just kind of like, we got to hit every one of these things, and the anxiety, it's a very specific dance that you got to try to hit every, you know, you can't, and luckily that's where everybody, when I keep you hear me so like thankful of everyone, I think it's because if we didn't have people who were malleable, you know, a little bit, and bendable about certain things, it wouldn't have worked, because there's some things that we were like, let's move this chess piece over here and do this so that we can accomplish this. We'll come back into the interior, do this, and go over it, you know, and that's where everybody was so cool, because they were like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I've heard too, different people taking on multiple things, you know, just kind of for the greater good of the overall project.
You know, to wear all these hats, literally, you know, like, you know, it's, I mean, on my previous stuff where I'm writing, directing, producing, and acting, it was cool to not have to do the directing, you know, and just trust Nick, you know, because he just really did deliver. Nick made a great movie, you know.
Totally.
It's funny because there's been a few people out there who've kind of like hit on some reviews, like, you know, and it's funny though, some of those folks, when I read some of those reviews, I mean, mostly it's been positive, but I mean, New York, standing ovations and all. But when you know, and I've watched the film now with regular audiences too, where I'm like just sitting in the back of the theater, kind of watching, and they're laughing at parts you forgot that were funny, and they're, you know. But you know, it's sometimes when there's, you know, a journalist who might kind of write something kind of mean, it's interesting. You know, they might not know what went into, you know, and you're like, you know, you're really proud of that, because that so much went into that, and to just make it happen, you know. But some people might brush it off. So now when I watch, you know, that's the thing, you know, when you work in film, and you probably are like this because you talk to so many filmmakers and actors and people in the business, you're a lot easier on other folks, where, you know, someone might go, oh, I hated how this movie did this. I'm like, that guy busted his butt to do that.
Right.
I adored it. I thought it was great. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So the perspective changes. I don't know. So,
you know, and there are those things though too, but I feel like at the end of the day, like, and one of those things, like I said, you know, with an intrusion, like, you go into something and something either just feels like a good movie or a bad movie. You can find positives out of something that you're like, I wasn't huge into, but the movie rocked. I was so glad, you know, that that, you know, the turnout of it and everything that, you know, that went into it. And luckily I ended up watching it a few more times after, to where, you know, it was like, all right, I don't have to, you know, suffer through this. This is a good time. This is sweet.
It's funny because Dustin, our patriarch, and we logged on to inform me that he's like, Dustin, dude. Look at him. He's like, office dude. No, I mean, we did. I was trying to see if we did the downtown Lake Orion establishing shot. We didn't know whether we were. Now I remember. We know where we set the office in an urban environment, or we set it in Main Street, small town, rural office. Yeah.
Okay.
We shot a bunch of extras that day, and we didn't end up using any of that footage. And we started with the extras because I'm all about big set pieces and big sort of, and then we actually went backwards, and the scene became smaller and more focused on his shot, actually. So I feel bad for all.
Okay.
Some of the extras still made it in. Hey, some of you guys still got featured. So.
Okay. How did you end up getting introduced to the script?
Yeah. So I mean, again, going back to that, Nick and I met at an event where both of us had just come up. It was one of those, when you work in film, whatever region you're at, whether you're in Venice, Italy, or whether you're in Detroit, Michigan, or whether you're in Los Angeles, California, or whether you're in, I don't know, anywhere, Peoria, wherever, you know, the people in the business will at some point come together and hang out at some sort of mixer or networking event, or so, you know, nosh on some cheese, drink wine, that kind of thing. And we had met, and we were the two people that sort of stood out from all these other filmmakers, sort of in a more sort of like, I don't want to sound trite, but in this weird dorky way, but we were kind of like the geeky guys, and you know, we just started chatting, and he had worked for Detroit Fire, and I grew up in the city of Detroit, so we were chatting about downtown. And then we started chatting about horror films, and the horror films from the '60s that we grew up watching in the '70s, and every decade going on. And he kind of was like, "Hey, I have this idea. Hey, we should talk." I was like, "Hey, I think you should let me produce something for you and act in something for we." And then one night he called me and he told me about the script, and he had already been chatting with Keir because of the music connection, and I kind of told him, I said, "Hey, I would love to bring this person aboard to do this, this, and this," and And then it just sort of happened. And he's like, well, if you do your part and I do my part and we put our parts together, I think we could, you'll do the producing thing and all that, and I'll do the. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Let's make this movie happen. You know, and then I fell in love with the script, and I was like, I would just want to keep it the way it is. You know, but again, part of that discussion, what brought us together is the anxiety to some extent of having previously worked on movies, because even he did a movie, the previous movies, again, both that we had worked on, where we wanted a little bit more control this time around to manage the outcome, because sometimes, again, folks don't understand that when 15 or 20 or 30 people get in a room and try to change everything the director and writer intended, and then, you know, if someone doesn't like the film or gives it a bad review, it's us, singular. You know, if a movie does bad, everyone falls on the director. It's the director's fault. You know, right. It's sort of, and we try to, and both of us understood that, you know, where we were like, oh man, I don't want that to happen. You know, we want to, and if some people don't like it, we want to be able to own it and have some sort of sense of authorship on it, at least. Because, you know, we had both kind of been there where it was like, you know, a Sam Logan or a Nick Holland film or what, you know, and we really wanted to be a little bit, so that's what brought us together. And I think that's what, when I read his script, I was just kind of like, hey, I love the script. I love how it starts. I love the midpoint, and I love how it ends. I'm like, let's do it. And he was like, yeah, let's do it in the way to make it, I just want to help uplift every sequence and scene. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to tell you to cut too much or to, you know, I mean, if we made any cuts, it was literally timing. It was more about running time and I don't think we ever lost any scenes. I mean, I might be wrong.
Oh, okay.
We lost time in scenes, but that was only to keep running time. So it wasn't, so there was really a commitment on my part as a producer to make sure, that's what producing is, to help that vision of what the writer and screenwriter and then the director want to execute to producers out there what producing. That's essentially what it is, to retain what that vision is. You know, I've seen a lot of producers, I've met other producers who come on board a movie and then want to change everything the writer and director does. And I'm like, then why are you producing that movie? Because
yeah, right.
Go make something else. If you
just make your own damn movie, shit.
Eat every sequence and scene and retain the title. We're great, you know. And you know, neither of us wanted to experience it. You know, that's kind of. But I think Nick's great. Nick's one of those amazing writers that he's actually writing something for me now. We're talking about what we're doing next, and hopefully we do something again. I know he's having a baby right now. I think probably in the next 72 hours, 48 hours, he might actually, Hannah might give birth. So congratulations, Nick. You made me an uncle. But you know, hopefully after
Jesus,
keep writing. Wouldn't it be funny if, like, because you've seen the movie, you know how, like, it's like a very dark, dreary, you know, character thriller, you know, horrific things happen in this movie, and now because of his baby, the next movie he does is going to be this G-rated.
That would be hilarious. Just a cartoon of sorts, maybe a Pixar picture.
That's what's gonna happen.
I don't know. I think Nick's got some other shit under his belt. You know, and I can mention too, as far as the two of you coming together, and you know, when I talked to Nick and, you know, kind of like the DIY kind of you know, hardcore metal music scene that him and I both, you know, are a part of. I think it's cool hearing the aspect of you talking about, like, look, we come together, we kind of, you know, get our assets all on the line. We're going to do the shit that we want to do, and we're not going to, you know, suffer to somebody else trying to tell me this is what it is that we're going to do. You know, like, I really appreciate that, especially out of even connecting it, you know, to the music scene of, like, nah, we're going to put on a show and we're going to have the bands we want and make it how we want it.
I mean,
I love that.
To participate. I mean, the music was such an important part of it. Music, you know, it's amazing how many people musical, you know, obviously Keir and Billy's got his own. Billy did the soundtrack, of course, for The Hobbit.
Yeah,
so musical in their skill set. Even, you know, Scout. Actually, it's funny because a lot of people know Scout from Halloween. Mm-hmm. I hate Scout to some extent with Nashville, which is one of my favorites. It's not on air anymore, but ABC's Nashville. I remember, you know, that was one of my favorite shows, and Scout played this country singer, and we chatted so much about music. And but music and film are two. I mean, it's like husband and wife. You can't, you know, it's like the two things that are just married together, and when they do come together, they can be really. Even the old, you know, like some of the old Nickelodeons and stuff, the stuff before, you know, even we had audio. I mean, we didn't have, you know, you couldn't hear dialogue, but people used to it's like Chaplin, right? You know, the visuals, the photography told the story and the narrative, and then the music kind of told you how to feel. You know,
Yeah, right, right.
that was one of the most the oldest sort of two pieces of the art, music and film coming together, and you know, slapping those things together, and pretty much, you know, yeah, no, music is brilliant. So I mean, we've been very lucky on this film. Even on my previous films, you know, James Stonehouse, who worked on Approaching Midnight, Mike Tremonte, who was one of the music producers of the Lord of the Rings, worked with Howard Shore, who did one of my last films. You know, I mean, he was brilliant guy. And Andy Nelson, who did this one, Andy was just what a great, you know, just brilliant score.
Huge, yeah.
And dude, just a good guy. We just had such good. Music is so important. You know, we're talking about, Nick and I are talking about possibly maybe a Western, maybe he's got this ambulance script. And I'm pushing him in certain directions.
Oh man,
we're thinking of all the things that, you know. But it's funny how music would play into all of those in the most brilliant way. So hopefully,
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Well, as far as performances, I wanted to touch on, as far as, were there particular moments, you know, as far as your character Chris, you know, playing in the film, were there particular moments, you know, being in the scene, being in the moment, where someone else's performance was just pushing you to be like, boy, I need to bump my shit up, you know, I gotta step it up.
Dustin, that dude is into it. He delivers. He's such a professional, but he likes to have fun, you know. So that's what's really great about him. He can have fun on the set, and you know that you're having fun with your co-star. And I mean, I shove about, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. So, but it's, I mean, everyone I got to, you know, Madison Merlanti, who plays the wife of my character. You know, it's funny because when Nick and I chatted about, we did this date night scene between me and Madison Merlanti and Erica Hovland and Doug Prince. You know, you know, you've got that couple, and then you've got the brother and sister-in-law. And you know, when we talked about that sequence in the restaurant that we shot at Charlie Still in Milford, which in the movie actually looks like it takes place in downtown Detroit because of the way it was edited, you know. But we wanted to see how their marriage was very stoic and dry, and you know, and they were very conservative in the way they presented themselves, like a real couple should, but their marriage is horrible. Whereas where me and Madison's character, there's a bit of a, you know, I kind of talked about how I wanted to perform not as appropriate, you know, the certain things that I say, you know, I dropped the F-bomb once, you know, I'm doing this, and it's not about,
yeah.
It's just about doing it right, so it's authentic and real, not about overdoing, but just enough where you're kind of like, is this guy an ass? Is he like, but with his wife, and he calls his wife stupid, but it's a joke, and she finds it funny. And then, but their marriage, you know, my character's marriage is 10 times better and more solid, even being completely sort of a mess. Whereas his is, it's how you would imagine a marriage should be, but it's bad, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to show at the dinner table and how Cy shot it with, you know, feeding the grape to Madison's character, and you know, and then they got to go, and you know, this follows after that. Of course, it leads into the thing, but it's yeah, and you know, working with great, and then of course, you know, to be able to have a scene with Billy, you know, that was really awesome. You know, it was just a small one, but I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm like standing here, you know. And I just saw him in Hollywood on Netflix, you know, and so,
oh, okay, you
know, and I right before I was like, this guy's power. I mean, this guy's so powerful, you know. Got me, I'm just kind of going off, you know, in a tangent, and kind of, you know, I kind of wrote my own thing to some extent of like how I want it to be, you know, so he'd have that react. I mean, it was that was just brilliant. You know, yeah, it's everyone feeds off. There's a lot of reactivity, you know. There's, you know, that was the whole film. Everyone kind of did that. Everyone was reactive to one another, and that's really when great acting happens. It's because even when you improvise and there's the reaction, not. A lot of times actors the trick is they'll hold a lot. They know they're going to say something a certain way, and they're holding on to it so much that they're forgetting the moment. Because life is actually being in the moment and reacting to something someone says, and reacting to someone, as opposed to just focusing on what you're going to say and do, and, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to move my coffee cup, and then this. And if you're there, you're there, and if you're not, you're not. It was really great. in this instance with everybody, because everyone was just so completely into one another. And then even watching Dustin and Scout, oh my goodness, Scout. And it was cool to be able to watch her in something where she wasn't the damsel, but she also wasn't screaming because, you know, bloody murder, because of, she's done a few horror films. To be able to see her in this like strong female empowered sort of, you know, head detective at this, you know, and I'm just like, you know, and I think that's something that hopefully I think attracted to her to the role. But man, she really delivers, and she trained. She actually trained. She came early, and she trained with the chief of police at the time, Jerry Narsh, and Lake Orion PD, and how to use a gun, how to do. She went on ride-along. She did all that stuff. She literally did the whole thing. She wanted to feel.
Damn! Wow! No kidding.
Yeah, she wanted to breathe police officers out, because there's something that being a cop does to your whole like physicality, almost like a soldier. You know how to, you know, there's a certain way of how you approach things, and then also because there's also the little element where you have to be a little jovial and jocular too with your public, and how do you. And she came in and she hung out with all those guys. She did such an amazing job with that. So,
wow, that's awesome. That's very cool.
And out with a bunch of jackasses to learn how
to take on the professional, and then take on, you know, some of the silly tomfoolery, and have a nice blend of it. I like that. What was there something that just comes to mind as far as your first time watching the movie back, and just thinking of maybe the first time you read the script and seeing the movie and being like, oh, that turned out so cool, you know? And maybe not even the end sequence, which obviously is so overwhelming and there's so much going on, but maybe even a scene with yourself in it where you're like, oh, I love how that turned out.
My mom is actually Sophia. Hey, Mom. Cameos. She plays. She plays the musician in the church. You know, okay, yeah. And she takes a swig of you know, whatever liquor that, you know, yeah. Her outside. It's funny because she's got I think that was really exciting for her, because, you know, she probably remembers, you know, 20 years ago when we went to see Lord of the Rings at the first theater. Now she gets to do a scene with it.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I love that.
I think that was like a moment where she's like, oh, okay, I think this movie thing's kind of working for a second, you know. Yeah. When you know, now it's okay because I didn't go off and become like a heart surgeon or something. Now I'm in the movie. Now he's nominated. No, that was really cool that I was able to have her do that. It was cool that I had a lot of folks come out, like even like those little cameos, Grover McCants from my last movie, Neil Mosen and Karen McCants, and all these little guys that they were in the church scene, and Ann P. Collins, and I mean, there's so many, the names are all escaping me, but people that came out to do all these, you know, to be sort of featured players. That was really exciting for us because there was a lot of faces of people that were close to us, friends and family. But a scene that really, I think, you know, there's one sequence that actually, like, I directed like a shot that I kept begging Nick to put in the film, and it's literally an area, but it's like, I said, there's this shot, Detroit, there was this fog that was kind of settled over the city, and often when you see Detroit, you kind of see
with the lights behind.
Yeah. You saw the Penobscot building piercing kind of out of the clouds.
Yeah. Okay. Sort
of ominous kind of thing. I said, listen, and I kept saying, use this in the trailer. He's like, well, no, not in the trailer. I was like, use it. And I never felt like so connected to a single shot. I think what a lot of, you know, as a producer, I didn't like use this, you know, but it was this one single shot that I was like, you have to use this shot. This shot's you know, and I gave him this like philosophical reason as to why, and he kind of stared at me. I think he may have wanted to laugh, but like it's just. What is he giving me a thesis, some film thesis of why the shot should be in there, which I did, I think, but it made the, you know, and I was like, oh, see, it works. I told you, you know. It's funny because. I actually did have a few people kind of make a comment about that to me. They're like, "Oh, what that was so like." Someone said to me it was so Nolan. That was someone in New York said, "Oh, that was so Nolan." And I think now we associate Chris Nolan with having doing the best aerial shot. What director does the best aerials? That's what we should do.
Yeah, let's scrap the whole rest of this conversation and dig into this. No, it's funny that you mentioned that too, and because I was when I watched the movie with my wife and my boy. We came to that scene, and I remember saying like out loud, like to them, you know, mentioning like that scene is so damn cool. And I mean that's you know, not to mention it not being Nick or being you or however, but that was one really cool visual, you know, just of like something that popped out, just the cloud, the fog and the lights that were behind. It was awesome looking.
I was just such a fan of the architecture. I've like referred to the Penobscot a few times in conversation with people. I'm such a fan of art. You know, it's a building that looks very New Yorkish. That sort of that early 1900s like New York. You know, it's not very modern, but that's why there's a sort of a vintage. I feel like King Kong should be climbing it or something. So I was like, that's why. There's something about it. I was like, this movie should take place in, you know, even though it took place in sort of a fictional Detroit in our minds, and even kind of on camera, I guess it's one of the things we didn't want to blatantly say where a movie took place. You know, there's a lot of times where you establish a shot, and it's like, oh, that's Chicago, or you're like, that's Manhattan, or you know, that's St. Louis or that's Los Angeles because I can see the U.S. Bank building. You know, we wanted to make sure that. To some extent, it was you didn't really quite know like what what city is this? You know, it's funny. New York, we had some people go, "Oh, did you guys shoot the drone stuff in New York?" I'm like, "No, that's Detroit." You know, and then you know in Detroit, even a couple people forgot that those were buildings in Detroit. You kind of do a lot more of the modern skyline across and it's interesting how much discussion will go into that when you're doing a series of establishing shots like. Do we want to see this building? Do we not want to see that building? If we show this building, it's kind of dating the film because that's a more you know, where do we want to place the movie in time? And, you know, do we want to see orders of, you know, it really is funny how much, but so much conversation happens about that kind of thing. And then you're like 45 minutes later, you sit down and go, do you realize we all just been talking about aerial shots? And it's funny because that's why I said that one of the people that like the Dark Knight sort of changed everything, right? Where you're like Nolan does it. Oh man, I'm like it's sort of you know heat and all that. You know, it's funny because like Steve Norrington in Blade '98. You know that you watch it, I was like, that's L.A. That's what I love about that film. Like you're like that's not the L.A. I know. Some people think it's New York. Some people think, but it's just how we. It's amazing how much the art of architecture and the photography of architecture, how it goes into something, you know, and that really was, and this might sound so pretentious that we're even talking about on my end, because you know I remember one of the very first sets that I was on was The Island, Michael Bay. It was what was that 2003 because it came out in '05. I don't know, but one of the first bigger sets I was on, because he was shooting in Detroit at the time and I just loved the way he did the same thing I was like, and then I saw the movie later. I was like, I love how he used Detroit, but used Chicago, but used LA and merged everything into this thing. And, we're just think about it, audience, where do movies take place sometimes when you watch it? There is a beautiful art to that and how photography helps tell that story and how it makes you feel. So, or Seven, Fincher's Seven. How Darius Kanji, when he shoots Los Angeles in Seven, it's funny how many people, if you ask what city does that movie take place in, so many people want to say New York again, but you're like, no, that's L.A. The fact that he shot L.A. to make you feel like it's like 1930s New York in a way, and it's vintage New York, it's like but it's L.A. It is. It's funny because it's like it is, but it isn't. But it is, but it isn't. Those are things that Nick and I just love about too, because we'll sit down and talk about Fincher and all these people and all these directors we love, and how something as simple as where and how someone establishes where a movie is so. So when you asked about our first day and how we were having a discussion about the office scene and where do we want to put it? Is it going to be an urban environment or Main Street, small town, rural environment? And how so much of that conversation goes into affecting the character. So, this is, but I get fearful that some people might be like, this guy's
No, I mean, that is interesting. And it's something I guess I've never really thought of when you're just reading a script and maybe even, you know, not necessarily wanting it to be, you know, something where, okay, this is going to be the location of Michigan, this is going to be Detroit, this is going to be Lansing, you know, however it may be, and how some of those things might change a little bit, even if, you know, if a location didn't work and you had to film somewhere else, and it might change the overall feel of what's going on in the scene. And that's, it's definitely interesting to hear that stuff. It's not something that I initially think of, but yeah.
And boring.
No,
but,
no.
I love that. How we, I mean, so that's actually affected the inspiration and how we opened our film. Wanted the title sequence. Think about every opening sequence, how it works. Even like the more modern stuff, like Gone Girl, you know, versus Seven, versus Panic, versus, everything has a unique sort of, you're like, where the theme of the film and the atmosphere and the feeling of how you feel before the movie even starts, or while it's starting, because it is starting. It's not, oh, these are the credits now, it's starting. It's not, but how that sort of plays into the picture. You know, those are things that, you know, when we talk about like growing up, you know, key art and posters, there's also an art to opening title sequences. There's an art to trailer.
Yeah, totally.
Those are the things that stay with you. Or like, you know, Oliver Stone's Wall Street 2, and how he does the stock market up, you know, that goes around the skyline of New York City. And, you know, and I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before. And I think maybe because I didn't notice it is why I like it. Because I did, but I didn't. You kind of did in the back of your mind, you know. It's not like, you know, credits that you might see on a very bland TV show where it's like, we have to put these, you know, Trajan credits or Tahoma credits or Ariel credits on top of white on black on bed.
Yeah.
But so
and I love that in An Intrusion too, how it was like the lettering, and I can't remember if it was the picture or the letters that zoomed in, and you had the picture that was behind it that started.
Yeah. So,
was that the trailer? Am I fucking that up? I'm sorry.
No. You're referring to the title in the movie doesn't come up till much later. So we did the opening title sequences, and then later, I don't have a picture, but yeah, the title sequence kind of comes up.
Yeah.
It's over an aerial shot, and then the camera goes through the letters over the road, and you see the car, and where our characters are driving down the street, down a road. Yeah, I like, you know, that was really. It's funny how many people commented on that. How much, even last night, I saw some friends, you know, and people were like, oh, "I love that." I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because you forget that you thought it was like, "Hey, we did that because."
After so many times of seeing it and going over, you know, editing and different things, and yeah, I can imagine.
Important, you know. I mean, that's so much part of the art of the film is how to start a film and tell a film, and you know, and even in that, you know, the title sequence, we had to lock it, you know, and you know, deliver it to the Producers Guild, and because you know, my name had to either. It was funny because they had to either come directly. Refer directly after Nick's to you know, for rules, and then you have of course talent and your actors and who's the first and this and the second, third, and fourth. And does someone have an and? Does someone have a with? Who? How? In what order? You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. While people think there isn't, there's so much of back and you know. So even when nowadays, I'll be like, oh, I wonder, you know. And there's some like big actor who shows up in a cameo in a movie. You know, they're in just one scene, but they'll be the very last thing you'll see, and they'll say, "And this person," you know, or you know, with this, you know, it's and how that will kind of be introduced, and so.
And that's just based on the time that they're in the film, then.
I mean, a little bit. You know, it's interesting. You know, a lot of times when you see the you know, because in our situation, I don't want to spoil it. You know. But Billy came aboard later in the process of the film. We had already shot a little bit of, you know, and so yeah, so he is he's our core star. Like, so it's kind of saying, hey, the movie is these people with these people and this person, you know, or with this person is kind of our and this you know, that it's how a lot of other bigger films will kind of say, you know, I've seen films where I've seen things where it'd be like, and Ian McKellen, you know, or and
Okay.
you know, and I saw a movie the other day or something, and Kelsey Grammer. So you're like, oh, okay, and in your mind, you know, okay, so Kelsey Grammer's not going to be the star of the film, but he's going to have a role that's very pivotal and important to the movie and
I see. Okay.
the plot line of the film, and he'll come up at a certain point. And, you know, it's so interesting, you know, then you'll start, as a filmmaker, start that. And Judi Dench. What's the movie that Judi Dench got nominated for? What was it? Gosh, it was a Shakespeare in Love. Oh, what was she in? Oh my goodness, Dame Judi Dench, and I can't believe I'm so embarrassed that I not know this. Always, you're like TV, you should know everything.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah. Well, anyways.
Anyway.
Sorry,
yeah.
Dane. But yes, but I think it's Shakespeare in Love. So, and she's in the movie for like a scene, for like a single scene or sequence. Maybe like multiple scenes, but a sequence. But it's kind of like, she's kind of like, oh, here's this wonderful actress who's bequeathed herself upon this project. But she's, and it's not like a throwaway cameo. It's very important, but they're doing it in this way, in this part, you know, kind of the way that we had with Billy.
Okay.
Hey, he plays without Minister Fairfield. Some of these other scenes can't happen. So you need him, and you need someone important to do that. And that was the conversation we had. So yeah. But so much of that goes into, I can't believe I'm like talking about it. I'm like, because some people are probably watching going, what boring conversation.
I mean, it's interesting to me. I don't know, you know, like the ins and outs as far as film, and hearing some of those things too, and
because
asking someone who fucking knows. I mean, that's one way to find out.
Right. You have to ask, or when in our case we have a conversation about it, because so many indie filmmakers out there don't know how to. I'm just going to put this in any order, alphabet. I'm like, no, there's actually an order. It's an important, you know, or let you talk. You might have, let's say you have like, I don't know, there's a movie and Mark Wahlberg's the star of it, or you know, Clooney's the star of it, or something. You know, it's funny because now I just say Clooney. You don't even have to say the first name anymore. George Clooney, usually Rosemary, but you know. And those guys will have it, you know, where, I remember when I was on Batman vs. Superman, and I remember looking at the call sheet because I wanted to see who was 1 and who was 2. Like, which one's 1? You know, is it Batman or is it Superman? Is it Affleck or is it Cavill? Or is it, you know, that was a fun experience, by the way. That was a very fun experience. Also people that are super nice. I didn't get a chance to meet Affleck because, you know, I wasn't in a scene that incorporated Batman, but I was in a scene that incorporated Superman. And there was like when we were just on break, I think, and you know, the sort of, if you're part of like the actors that have like lines and whatnot, you know, on a movie set are kind of shuffled into one area, and you're not allowed to go into this area, and then the crew's not allowed. Yeah, everyone, you know, because it's like, I don't know, union rules or whatever. There's different people and different. But I remember, you know. During a break, I walked up, you know, we were like both washing our hands in this little, like, it was one of those portable restrooms, and he's in his Superman outfit, and I'm just, you know, I'm in my outfit, which it was, by the way, no, I shouldn't say that. Mike Wilkinson, what an amazing costume designer. By the way, the concept of the character was not the costume itself was ridiculous, but I'm this leather jacket with this like red stripe. I sort of one of these like Superman haters, and you know, and it's just I look so silly because, you know. And I'm looking over at him, and he's looking at him, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Listen, mate, just wanted to thank you for." I don't know, you know, you just want to say, you're like, "Thank you for coming out to Motown. Thanks for coming out to Michigan." And he's like, "No worries, no worries." He's a super nice guy. And it was funny because we just chatted for like maybe 30 or 60 seconds and just about Michigan and whatever. But he was super nice. I was like, Henry Cavill is again. What is it with like British people? They're super nice. They're all, they're so like. You know, just well delivered in everything they say, even in something casual. Like, and he was what a nice guy. And then it was funny because I had observed how he was with children on set. There were some kids, and like that you could tell that was super important to him. How he would talk to kids and take pictures with kids, and you know.
Oh wow!
Really, really, really nice guy. That was a guy that I'd wanted to meet in a while, and his story is great too. How he went from, because he had auditioned for that role several times. Remember, he was almost Superman in several movies. You know?
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
He auditioned for the one that Brandon Routh did too, the Superman Returns, the Bryan Singer film.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
okay.
And he had others, you know, and you know, and his whole story is really awesome, from the Count of Monte Cristo and how he ended up being, you know, and then doing this role and being an extra in this movie and then doing it, and then now he's, as we know, now he's doing The Witcher. What I don't know why we started talking about that. Oh yeah, because I was on that set. But I was, yeah, and what a great guy, absolute great guy, and had a chance to even meet Commissioner Gordon on that too, yeah, who was also now, you know, J. Jonah Jameson. How cool is that for?
Oh dang, okay.
J.K. Simmons was when I met J.K. What a nice guy. I didn't meet him on set. I met him at a party afterwards, and we chatted. And J.K. was one of the longest conversations I had with an actor I looked up to. And we chatted for about, I want to say, 20, 30 minutes, literally. And we were at one of these, I think it was like Mitch Albom had a book that he was releasing. So we're chatting at this party, and he was like, "Oh, well, I have a Detroit connection, and my parents there's a connection because they used to grow up in, you know, I actually used to live in Grosse Pointe, and and then the Detroit East Side and all that." And again, what a nice guy. J.K. Simmons was one of, it's funny because we had just done Whiplash too, you know, right?
Yeah, I have a Whiplash quote written in my room there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're thinking, and he was like the opposite of that. He was like the nicest gentleman anyone could ever be. And J.K. Simmons is so low key. Here's what's funny about J.K. is, I know what I say is like as though we're on some sort of first name basis, which we're not, but work together. Hey, you know, reach out. I'd love to work with you. Bring it back to your roots. That's the kind of guy that just like, I don't know what it is, but he's so casual, like doesn't even know, like. And I love when you meet actors like that when they don't know how cool or big that they are to you, but they just treat you like just kind of like, hey, yeah, let's just chat shop, you know. And he's one of those, or maybe guys,
don't care, you know.
Yeah, you know, Brian Cox was like that. You know, I remember meeting Brian Cox, you know, because I'm a huge fan of Succession and obviously Braveheart and X-Men 2 and all that. And I remember meeting Brian Cox, and he was the same way. And we talked about, because I went to Guildhall, and we talked about Lambda, and you know. Because he went to the London, I think, yeah, the London Academy of Music and Drama, and you know, I went to Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and all that. And so we just talked about theater conservatories in the UK, and we talked about acting school and drama, and it was just a conversation you could tell he wanted to have with me, and we were just and I chatting, and after about 5-10 minutes, I was like, oh, thanks, you know, appreciate it, you know, and you know, there's some of these guys, especially some of these old, you know, they're sort of part of the, I call them the gentlemen of Hollywood, right? But that, you know, I mean, some of them are just so wonderful. They're just so like, you know, they're, you know, and it's great because they just want to talk about the art of it all too. You know, it's not about this and this and so, and what did they wear and what suit were they in at the award. You know, like they just want to talk about the work. You know, and you know, and they love it when, I think that's the cool thing is some of these guys. So it's going back to when you were talking about heroes and all that. But when I meet actors like that are just like, that I look up to and I would love to collaborate with and work with, and you could tell that they are just as passionate about something as you are, and you can tell that they're passionate about what they're doing, and all it's about, you know. And
yeah,
like, you know,
even outside of film, I think it's something that, you know, more people have to concentrate on, just being kind, you know, especially the times that we're in right now. Like, it doesn't fucking take much just to shed a smile, say hi.
I really respected about Keir. You know, I remember when Billy and Keir were on set, it was the same way. It was, you know, I had a conversation in Car about certain things, and he was just kind of like, because that dude is so cool. That dude is so, what a chill guy. Like, he's just so like relaxed, and I don't even think that he you could tell that he doesn't, you know, to you, like, you're kind of like, oh my God, you're, you know, and it's kind of a funny thing. And I love that movie and it is, but he's like, cool. You know, just the way you might love your movie, you know, you know, and so, and it's funny because if you go to some of the, you probably have been, I'm assuming, but some of the quote unquote Hollywood events, but when you're, you know, there's special events like right now, you know, PGA or SAG Awards, things like that. There's a lot of these, you know, you get invited to a lot of certain things and advanced screenings with actors, you know. It's interesting how sometimes some things can get branded by a PR company to be, this is what this has to be, and then we have this, and then we're going to do that. But for so many of the actors, they just want to talk about the work and just have fun, and it's not about it. You know, they're kind of like, I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, I remember. Oh, Saw! I remember when the very, very, very first Saw film came out. We're talking about Saw 1, not Saw 2000. So, when are they on that? That franchise is what a wow. The fact that that's I remember when I met Lee Winnell and James Wan, what two of the nicest guys. I was at a screening of Saw. It was like a special screening, advanced screening, and it wasn't the James Wan of Aquaman yet or Fast and Furious, right? So we just chatted like, oh, how'd you do this? And I remember him and Lee were talking to me. They were just telling me, well, you know, we made the short film first, and then we did this, and they're just chatting, and you know, and then they were like, yeah, we just hooked up with our agency, management company, and Paradigm did all, you know, and they're like just talking to you about it, and you're like, oh, that's cool. And then they're giving you some advice. Well, if you want to do your thing, you should do it kind of how we and then we kind of did. And it's amazing to think like now that was the James Wan of, you know, 2 decades ago, who's now directing a $300 million superhero movie, or, you know, or Lee Winnell, who now you're associating with the whole franchise and who's done, he's a wonderful actor himself. So, you know, yeah, most people just love talk, you know, that's the thing, loves to talk about work and collaborating and discussions of where to take something. And so many people out there who are aspiring, so if anyone's like listening to this, watching this, you'd be surprised who you could or couldn't. You know, everyone's always, oh, I can't, that person. Well, you know, sometimes there's the wall of a representative that might want to make sure that you don't. But, you know, you'd be surprised in a casual situation if you work your way up. You know, I always tell a lot of people, I know a few people that are going to Sundance next month. And I'm like, hey, you should be proud. You got your movie in the Sundance. Make sure to talk to people about what they're doing, too. You don't just kind of do what the publicist might want you to do, is just run around, do something, talk about something, and then go hide in your hotel. No, go meet, because you'd be surprised who will bump into you in that moment. And it might be some A-lister that you, like, grew up watching and loving, and then because you're at that festival, now there's a certain sense of legitimacy, right? You know, and that's what An Intrusion, I think, did for Nick and I. When we screened and we premiered and did certain things and did a certain way, it allowed us. I mean, it became a calling card. Whereas we had done films before, but this one was more. This was sort of our calling card, where people are now certain phone calls get returned, right? So now if we reach out to certain people, I'm like, such and such's agent actually got back, you know, because now that person's like, oh, you guys are the guys that did that film, and you got a theatrical release, and you got this, and this person did. It gives you a certain thing of, or you did it, you understand what goes through making, because making a movie is like one of the hardest. I mean, listen, we're so lucky. I mean, there's things that are harder. I don't want to, you know, the life paramedic is difficult. The life of a person who, you know, lovely lady delivers my mail, can't take a bathroom break and has to drive around in this little vehicle for like 8 hours a day. That's difficult for what a lot of people. So a lot of people might, you know, complain. And I'm not complaining, but what I'm saying is,
it's still work.
Yeah, it's still, you know,
still hard work for sure. And
so when it's like getting your PhD, right? It's like I think a lot of people, when they kind of go, oh, you know, you've been in the, you know, it's funny, you know, now that we kind of, you're in the Hollywood Reporter or the Variety or in the trades, and that you're, you know, when you're in, this person's writing about the other day, even Approaching Midnight, when my first film got mentioned in Us Weekly, and that's a magazine that I like will just read for funny movie gossip news, and then it's like, you know, Sam Logan Khaleghi is approaching, and you're like, did they just mention my movie? Like, you're like, you're reading that article again. I'm like, yeah, no, oh wow, you know. So it's like there's a surreal thing. I mean, being here with you, you know, it's still the same way. I still feel the same way, no different. I was like, the fact that I feel elated and lucky that you and I can have a conversation about film and cinema and art, this film and any film, and the fact that we're even in this position, I feel. No, I love it, because I think you were someone there, your passion for film and horror and the genre, and I mean, and you got one of the greatest backdrops in your whole office. The whole, like, probably house. I mean, is the whole house that way? Is the whole kind of that stuff everywhere? Or is it just
this room? Nope.
Because all right, you want a quick tour? But all right,
Sure.
so I got like, we've got I don't know. Let's see if we like. There's Bill. Oh, thanks to Billy for signing that. That was my copy of Return of the King right there. But
okay.
I'm such a geek, so people want to know what I read. I'm all about X-Men. There's Hickman's Hoxpox hardcover. There you go. Pretty much
Awesome.
Everything from Great Expectations to Moby Dick to Tale of Two Cities. So
okay. All right.
And a shout out to Batman versus Superman. I got my little. So my whole thing, but it's everyone's probably like, no, what that little thing? No, but I'm all over. So if you come over to my house, you'll see like there's we've got the old 8mm and 16mm cameras on the wall, old projectors, and I got the X-Men #9 on the wall, which is the first time that the Avengers
Nice.
actually,
Yeah, right.
I don't remember if it was the first time in X-Men, at least. That was again a comic book I could never have afforded when I was a kid because I was like didn't have 2 nickels in my name. But I remember when I was like, I'm buying that book. So,
Making these dreams happen now, for sure. But also appreciating the upbringing that you had as well. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I went from when you go from ramen noodles to and to now you can have to organic vegetables, right? That's what I should write a book. From ramen noodles to organic vegetables. That should be like a book. That's what I. If I wasn't doing film or TV, I'd probably be like an organic farmer of some sort. Composting.
Okay.
I just living a simple life. I don't know, like a cowboy somewhere. But I guess everything, every little thing. But now you see what kind of a. If you don't even want to see the wide shot, trust me. It's my house is like it's again it's an amalgam, and I use that word of it's like our house and Ethan Allen merged with comic book store. So you're like, oh, look at all this nice fancy bougie furniture. There's like all these like what's up with all like the the geeky stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing to have those those interests and those collections and things to kind of remind yourself to not take yourself so seriously and to have some fun with life and work when work is necessary, and then at other times you have to bust your ass and have a little fun and maybe something in return at the end of that. So I can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Look, man, this has been absolutely awesome. I'm gonna, we're gonna wrap here. But
hear that?
I'm
Lo-fi horrors cutting me off. They said you're done. You gotta.
No, absolutely.
No. For the danger, I texted you earlier. I said I could just. It'd be like you're like Sam. We've been
sadly, I just have to head to work. Otherwise, we would still be here for probably quite a while more.
Well, send me an idea. Let's make your movie.
Boy, I don't even know where to start. But you know what? I'll do you one even better, and we're gonna stay in contact. And if you ever need something that I can help you with, please let me know, because I love what you guys did with this movie, and I've been checking out other features from different people involved as well. And this has been great. This has been an awesome journey, and I appreciate you reaching out and inviting me out to the premiere, which was absolutely awesome. So thank you very much, Sam. This has been awesome.
You've been awesome, and thanks for your movie. I mean, the amount of love that we've gotten from you and your show, and special thanks to the wife or anyone else at home domestically who has allowed me and us to borrow you so many times.
Right.
I don't think any other film has had this many interviews of the whole cast. So
there's a couple coming in a couple of months here too. So we're not done.
Yeah, no, we're not done. Blu-ray DVD on January 24th. It's on Amazon now, and not Intrude, but Intrude. And if you're
Awesome.
out there, smash the follow button on Lo-Fi Horror, smash it, hit it, do all of that stuff, and like everything this man is doing, because he's doing it for you, that we can so that we can all sit down and chat about the things we love. So
there you go. All right, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. You take care and stay healthy. Stay safe.
exactly, wear that face mask.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care. Bye-bye.
Or
he's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.